First step is to call Octane settings. Under the Kernels tab, you will find a drop-down that contains a few rendering modes. The first one is called Info Channels, that will render images which will be later useful for compositing applications. Then we have Direct Lighting, which is a biased render kernel. It is often used for quick previews and animations. And finally, Path Tracing and PMC are both unbiased and are thus able to provide photorealistic results. Let's select Path Tracing. Max samples is basically the quality of the render. A value of 16,000 is obviously way too high, so we can safely bring it down to 1024. The number of diffuse depths can go down as well to 4. Same applies for specular depth. To fight any potential fireflies, we can increase the caustic blur to a value of 0.2 and reduce the GI clamp to 0.25. You need to be careful when rendering animation and the coherent ratio parameter, because this may introduce some flickering, so I'll be subtle with it and apply a value of 0.2. Close Octane settings and open up the render settings. Under the renderer drop-down, select Octane Render and let's take a look at some of the parameters available. First, make sure that method is set to resend only updated objects. What this actually means is that only geometry that is moving in the camera view will be exported for each frame of the animation. Objects that do not move and remain static will be cached and carried over to the next frame without an additional export. To help Octane determine which parts of our scene are moving and which remain still, we need to use the Octane object tag. By looking at our animation, we can determine that the spheres and the colliders along the way are actually moving. So I will select the parent objects in these hierarchies, right-click, Octane for Cinema 4D, Octane object tag. Here we have mesh number that can go from 0 all the way up to 7. With values from 1 to 7, we mark geometry that is meant to be moving in the scene. It is a good idea to assign each moving part a different mesh number. So I can easily type in, which will result in a unique number for each animation group. Objects that remain static, like the container for example, can be as well assigned an object tag with a mesh number of 0. Setting up a mesh number of 0 or setting no tag at all is basically the same thing, so I will leave it as it is. Moving on with render settings, next, update method is recommended to be set to faster updates. Finally, select the render buffer type or the quality and bit depth of output images. For this example, I will use float tone mapped because I like to render 16-bit images. And finally, you can enable use all GPUs if you plan to leave your PC for an overnight render. What's left to do now is simply press render to picture viewer, and this is it.